My daughter left me standing at curbside departures with 2 suitcases and told me to figure it out myself. Then she got in her car and drove away. No hug, no wave, just tail lights disappearing into Phoenix traffic while I stood there in 104-degree heat holding a garment bag with my son-in-law's blazer still on the hanger because nobody had bothered to take it back inside. I stood with that for almost 40 minutes before anything else happened. But that's not where this story ends. My name is Eleanor Sorensen. Everyone calls me Ellie. I'm 67, spent 34 years as a structural engineer in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The kind of job where your name ends up stamped on bridges nobody thinks twice about until the day they don't fall down. I live alone now, in the same house I raised my daughter in, the same house my husband Robert died in 3 years ago this April. I used to believe if you built something solid enough, it held. Beams, buildings, families. I was wrong about at least one of those, and it took an airport curb to teach me which. Renee is my only child, 38, married to Craig Blake for 9 years, living outside Scottsdale. Craig runs a development company with a business card that says a lot and means almost nothing. My granddaughter Bailey, 15, is the best thing that family produced, that matters later. Robert and I raised Renee to be independent, maybe too independent. After Robert passed, Renee's calls slowly thinned into a nightly text with a heart emoji sent around 9. Which I've learned is when people send messages they don't want to have a conversation about. So when she called out of nowhere and said, "Mom, come out for Labor Day. Just us. Bailey's been asking about you," I booked the flight that same night. Renee picked me up wearing sunglasses indoors, hugged me the way you hug a coworker at a party. Bailey wasn't with her. "She's got a thing," Renee said, which turned out to mean nothing. The first 2 days were strange, but fine. Craig grilled steaks and talked for 40 minutes about a development project he called the crown jewel of the portfolio. Bailey and I sat on the back patio Sunday evening, and she showed me a robotics project she'd built, explaining torque and gear ratios like she actually wanted me there. Remember that patio conversation? It matters later. Sunday night, after Bailey went to bed, Renee and Craig sat me down at the kitchen island with a manila folder and 2 glasses of wine I hadn't asked for. "It's about estate planning," Craig said, sliding the folder toward me. "Protecting the house. No probate headaches." Inside was a quitclaim deed with retained life estate. My address typed at the top, 2 blank signature lines below mine, one for Renee, one for Craig. "This adds us to the deed," Renee said, too quickly. "Nothing changes for you. Everybody does this now, Mom." I wasn't offended by the concept. I'm 67, I know how these conversations go, and I'd already had one with my own attorney, Warren Pike, 3 years earlier. What bothered me was the folder. Notarized, blank lines ready, waiting for a weekend when I happened to be 2,000 miles from my own lawyer. "I'd like Warren to look this over first," I said. The temperature in that kitchen dropped 15 degrees. "It's a standard form," Renee said. "Then it won't take him long," I said. Craig's jaw tightened. "There's a financing timing issue on our end. It really does need to happen soon. Financing timing." I filed that phrase away without knowing yet how important it would become. I didn't sign anything that night. I lay awake listening to a low argument 2 rooms away that I wasn't meant to hear. Monday morning, Renee was cold and efficient, telling me my flight had moved up 2 hours, which I later learned was a lie. The drive to the airport was 18 silent minutes. She popped the trunk without getting out and said, "Okay, this is you." I reached back in for a garment bag mixed with mine. "This is Craig's, isn't it?" That's when she said it. Window down, engine running. "Figure it out, Mom. I've got a lot going on." And she pulled away, leaving me on the curb with a stranger's blazer and a flight that didn't leave for 4.5 hours. I sat on a concrete bench, sweat soaking through my blouse, and did something I hadn't done in 3 years. Reached for my phone to call Robert before remembering I couldn't. That's when a voice said my name. Ellie? Ellie Sorensen? A man in his mid-40s walked toward me, rolling a carry-on. It's Marcus. Marcus Whitfield. You hired me in 1998. First real job I ever had. And there he was, a kid I'd spent 2 years teaching everything I knew about load calculations, now standing in front of me 20 years older. He looked at my suitcases, the garment bag that clearly wasn't mine, and his expression shifted. Ellie, what's going on? I told him the short version. That's not okay, he said. She's got a lot on her plate, I said, because apparently after 67 years, I still don't know how to stop defending my own daughter. He didn't argue out loud. He just said, come on, I've got 3 hours before my flight, and I'm going to tell you why I've been trying to track you down for 2 months. Over coffee near the gate, he told me he runs his own structural engineering firm now. 91 employees, Phoenix and Denver, built from nothing since 2011. I built it on your training, he said. Every calculation method I teach comes from you at that drafting table. He'd been asked to speak at a national symposium in Chicago that November and asked to name someone who shaped his career for a lifetime achievement recognition. He'd given them my name and had a researcher trying to track me down for 2 months because my old firm didn't exist anymore. Somewhere in that conversation, I mentioned the folder, the quitclaim deed, the phrase, financing timing. Marcus went quiet. Ellie. Blake Horizon Development. Is that the Cave Creek project? Sonoran Vista Ranch? My stomach dropped. How do you know that? 2 of my former clients are investors in that project, he said. There's a lawsuit brewing. Investors claiming falsified soil compaction reports to cut costs and hit deadlines. It's asking for damages north of $4 million. I sat there and felt something shift under my feet, the way it does when you realize a beam you trusted has a hairline crack you never caught. I flew home with his card in my pocket and a knot in my stomach that didn't loosen. I called my oldest friend, Hank Doyle, a retired contractor who tells you the truth even when you'd rather she didn't. On my back porch that night, she laid it out plain. It puts Craig's name on your house. If that lawsuit lands a judgment against him, his creditors can come after any asset with his name on it, including a house in Tulsa he's never paid a dime of property tax on. They'd have been using my house as a shield, I said slowly. Or collateral. Or both, Hank said. That folder wasn't about avoiding probate. It was about keeping Craig's company breathing for another 6 months. And your daughter helped put it in front of you. The next morning, I brought the folder to Warren. He read it twice, took off his glasses, and told me plainly, this wasn't a simple estate document. The moment I signed, Renee and Craig became legal co-owners, effective immediately. And if Craig faced a judgment, a creditor could place a lien against his share of my house. You would have handed half your house to his lawsuit, Warren said. In 15 years of doing this, I don't see documents like this show up by accident. I let 3 full days pass in silence. And silence, I learned, is a decision, not nothing. In that silence, with help from an accountant named Priya, I found what I'd actually been paying for. Bailey's private school tuition, 3 years running, gladly given. A car loan I'd co-signed for Craig's Range Rover and genuinely forgotten. A $600 monthly transfer to Renee that had run on autopilot since Robert died. Nearly $9,000 a year. The thank you for over 30 years of being their financial floor was a curb, 2 suitcases, and 4 words through a rolled-up window. I called Marcus on the 4th day, said yes to the symposium, and mentioned what Warren and Priya had found. He offered to connect me with the investor's attorney, purely as a friend. What came back 10 days later was worse than I expected. Falsified soil reports, cracks already in 2 completed foundations, and the possibility of fraud charges on top of the civil case. Craig had needed my house or my credit within weeks to keep the whole thing propped up. I sat with that for 2 more days, then called Renee. "I need you to listen and not talk for a minute," I said, keeping my voice level. "I had Warren review the deed. I know what it does. I know about the lawsuit, the soil compaction allegations, what Craig's actually facing. And I know that document was drafted to move fast enough to be recorded before any of it touched him." Long silence. "It's not what you think," she said. "I'm not finished," I said. "I flew 2,000 miles to see you in Bailey. I was dropped at the curb 4.5 hours early with your husband's blazer and told to figure it out. That's the part I want you to sit with, not the deed. The curb. I love you," I said, and meant it completely. "But love isn't the same as being useful, Renee. I think that's the only thing I've been to you and Craig for years." "That's not fair," she said, cracking. "Then tell me it's not true," I said. "Tell me the tuition, the car loan, the $600 a month since your father died, and a deed timed to a lawsuit you didn't think I'd find. Tell me none of that adds up to something." She didn't say it. She just cried. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. "I'm not signing that deed. I'm ending the automatic transfer this week. I'm removing myself from the car loan. Refinance it or sell it. Bailey's tuition isn't going anywhere. That was never for you and Craig. That was for her." "You're punishing us," Renee said, hardening. "No," I said. "I'm stopping. There's a difference." I hung up. I sat on my back porch a long time that night, feeling not triumph, not anger. Just a strange, quiet clarity. 2 weeks later, Warren drew up an amended will. The house and the bulk of my retirement accounts now sit in an irrevocable trust for Bailey alone, administered until she turns 25, education fully funded no matter what happens in her parents' lives. Renee is named, too, for a modest sum. A gesture, not an inheritance. Craig's name appears nowhere in it. I called Bailey directly for the first time in her life and told her nothing between me and her parents changed how I felt about her. "Grandma, Mom's been weird for a month," she said. "I'm glad you're not mad at me." She's the one who calls me every Sunday now. Not because anyone tells her to, but because she wants to talk through her physics homework or complain about a teacher who doesn't explain torque properly. She was always the loyal one. It just took a curb in Phoenix to make me see it clearly. That November, I flew back to Phoenix on my own terms. At the symposium, in front of 600 engineers, Marcus told a room of strangers about a drafting table in Tulsa in 1998 and a mentor he was proud to name. Then he called me up on stage and afterward offered me a standing role as senior consultant on his firm's most complex projects. Part-time, my own schedule. "I need your eye on things, Ellie," he said. I said yes before he finished the sentence. I still hear from Renee occasionally. A Christmas card, a birthday call that felt more honest than anything in the 2 years before it. Craig's lawsuit settled in January for an amount that nearly wiped out the company. Blake Horizon quietly dissolved by March. I've made peace with not knowing the rest, because that's not my house to keep propping up anymore. Hank still comes over most Fridays with pie and 2 beers we never finish. Marcus and I talk most weeks about steel connections and sometimes about nothing at all. And every Sunday evening my phone rings and it's Bailey. I finally understand something it took 67 years and one very hot curb to teach me. Love that only shows up when it needs something from you was never love at all. It was a transaction wearing love's clothing. But the ones who show up for no reason, who call because they want to, not because they need something signed, those are the ones you build your foundation around. Sometimes the worst moment of your life is just the universe clearing a curb so somebody better can pull up to it. If this story hit home, drop your city or state in the comments. I read every one. Subscribe and turn on notifications for more real stories like this every week. Until next time, build your foundation on the ones who show up for no reason at all.